Hello, writers. This is Mr. Ahrens here to teach you today the answer to this question that you have in front of you, which says, how do I write a strong thesis statement for an argumentative essay? So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to write a thesis statement for your argumentative essay that you were assigned last week, and I'm going to teach you the steps on how to do that. So as you just found out through the video that you watched, as well as the vocabulary exercise, a good thesis statement signals to the reader what your main points will be in your essay. It's an important part of an essay because it does tell your reader exactly what you're going to be arguing for. And a good thesis statement is also something that does require an argument. It's not simply a statement of a fact. So in StudySync, in the model section of this assignment, you'll find this checklist that they gave to you, and I thought it was pretty good. However, I also thought it was a little bit long. So I'm going to show it to you because, like I said, it's good. But then I also have revised it to make it a little bit shorter, a little bit easier to remember so that you can use it to write your own thesis statement. So they give you this checklist for a thesis statement, and it says this. Before begin writing your thesis statement, ask yourself the following questions. What is the prompt asking me to write about? What claim do I want to make about the topic of the essay? Is my claim precise? Is it specific to my topic? Does my thesis statement introduce the body of my essay? And where should I place my thesis statement? So all really good questions to keep in mind, but not really specific about where to start. So let's take a look at the list that I've created from that checklist and see if that gives you a better place to start. So I took this and I turned it into 4 steps. The 4 are think, draft, revise, and reread. I believe that if you follow these steps, you should be on your way to writing a good thesis statement. So here we go. The first step is to think about your central claim. Right? You were given the prompt last week, and I asked you to write a summary about your ideas. And so your claim should really be coming from that. What do you believe about the prompt? And a good way to do this is to make a checklist of important words that you want to include. Okay, you remember Donovan? Donovan was the student who wrote the model essay that we read in class together last week. And in this video, I'm also going to show you how he uses the different steps to write his thesis statement. So this is what he does first. It says he begins by thinking about the central claim of his essay, which he wrote as, the ideal intelligence test should assess different types of skills so that many people can show how they are smart and others can see how they can grow. He notes that his claim is related to the topic of his argumentative essay, but it is not yet specific to any details that will be present in his argument and does not include information to guide the reader through his essay. Before editing his thesis statement, he considers the ideas he wants to discuss in his essay. He identifies the claims and the counterclaims he intends to prove. He uses a graphic organizer to develop his ideas about his intelligence test. So Donovan has made this checklist of important words to include. So in his claims, he's going to be talking about dedication and he's going to be talking about courage. So those 2 keywords are listed here. And over here in his counterclaims, he's going to be sure to talk about multiple intelligences and verbal and analytical skills. I think this is a good strategy because we may forget when we're writing to include the important words that we think of right now. So making sure that you jot them down in a list is a great way to organize your thinking. Right? So first thing, think about your central claim. Next is to draft a thesis statement, to turn that checklist or that initial thought about your central claim into one sentence. So here's Donovan's draft thesis statement. He says, the ideal intelligence test should assess the skills that help people reach their potential. Okay, so it is one sentence, but he's not quite done yet. The next step is to review your thesis statement to see if it is specific or if you can add some details. So this is how Donovan does it. It says, Donovan reviews the writing prompt to make sure that his thesis statement responds completely to it. After reviewing the prompt, Donovan realizes that he needs to add details that help the reader anticipate the content of his essay. He intends to state specifically what intelligence tests should include. He revises his thesis statement and plans to include it at the end of his introduction. So Donovan is really thinking about his thesis statement and wondering, does it say specifically what I want to argue in my essay? And here he's also thinking about where his thesis statement is going to go. So he's going to put it in his introduction, and that's exactly where we saw it in the model that we read in class. So after he reviewed his thesis statement, he actually revised it. And down here at the bottom of the slide is his revision. It says, the ideal intelligence test should assess the skills that help people reach their potential, such as dedication and the courage to be creative. That sounds good, but he's not quite done. The last thing to do is to reread the thesis, keeping the prompt in mind to see if it will signal to the reader what your main points will be. So here you're really just checking up on yourself, making sure that that very important thesis statement does answer the prompt and that it's going to signal to the reader exactly what your main points of your argument are going to be. So to finish up the example, Donovan made sure to keep the prompt in mind. He clearly states the two factors he believes an effective intelligence test should take into account. This precise thesis statement will signal to the reader the points he will defend throughout his argumentative essay. As Donovan continues to work on his draft, he will refer back to this thesis statement in his essay to maintain clarity and focus in support of his statement. I think there's two important things here. First is that Donovan is checking to make sure that his thesis statement will signal to the reader the points that he's going to defend throughout his argumentative essay, but also he's going to use it as a tool to make sure that he's staying on topic. So your thesis statement is going to tell your reader your main points, but as you're writing, you can always come back to it and say, okay, are the things that I'm writing about in my body paragraphs, are they in line or are they supporting what I've written in my thesis statement? Because if you say you're going to talk about dedication and you say you're going to talk about courage, and then you end up talking about talent, then that's not really in line with what your thesis statement is. So you can always come back to it and make sure, check up on yourself. Right? So those are the 4 steps that I think you should use. One is to think about your central claim, then draft your thesis statement, then review your thesis to see if it is specific or how you can add details, revise it, and finally reread it just to check up on yourself. Make sure that it answers the prompt. Make sure that it will signal to the reader what your main points will be. Right. So in your assignment on StudySync, you have all of the things that I just went over in the lesson right here in the model section of the assignment. You have the checklist here, and then you have all of the examples from Donovan as he wrote his thesis statement. So if you want to go back and check each step, you can go and do that here. There's also this really cool organizer. There's a graphic organizer for you to take notes, make those keywords, and then draft your thesis statement right here. So you can work on it to the side as you're looking at how Donovan did his. Right. For the rest of your assignment, I would like for you to complete the Your Turn activity and the Write activity. The Your Turn activity is a chance for you to practice a little bit more with identifying good thesis statements. So it's going to ask you to sort these 6 statements into thesis statements, which are arguable, or statements of fact, which are, you really can't argue a fact. So you're going to just take these and you're going to drop them where you think they are. This is going to help you to make sure that when you write your thesis statement, you're not just simply stating a fact, but you're making an argument that you can actually support with evidence later. So please complete that. And then finally, the write section. And this is where you will actually write out your thesis statement. Okay, yours won't say thesis statement. Yours will say something profound and interesting and arguable. And when you're done, you're going to submit it by pressing this button down here. Okay. Also, I want you to look to the side. There is the graphic organizer. So if you use that, it will follow you and you can use it to help you write. And then there's also these questions that kind of help you check up on yourself. I recommend that you use them or you at least look at them so that you are writing the strongest thesis statement that you can. Okay, so again, you're drafting your thesis statement. You should complete the your turn and the write activities. And this is all due in class before Thursday. So thank you very much, writers. I look forward to seeing you writing.